Welcome to the Modernize or Die podcast, CFML News Edition, where we keep you up to date with everything going on in the Cold Fusion community. We'll share the latest news on events, releases to engines, frameworks, libraries, and tools, as well as spotlighting quality content from the community. Welcome to the Modernize or Die podcast. It is December 17th, 2024. Well, actually December 18th, New Zealand, right, Kai?
Hello. Yes, it's December 18th here.
Yep, so we got Kai all the way from New Zealand joining us as our co-host today. So thanks very much for joining us.
Double Kiwi crew, eh?
Yep, exactly. So yeah, this time last year I was in New Zealand visiting my family and everything, but it's a little cooler here in the States. But yeah, great to have you on, and Kai's going to give us some insight into a couple of events that have happened and are happening, but wants to join the show. So yeah, thanks for reaching out. And for those you don't know, Kai lives in New Zealand, but originally from Germany, so he's got double accent, so it's even harder to understand, right?
Yeah,
Just kidding.
it's a bit tricky, I know. Sorry.
All good. But his company, Vindigo Creative.
Yes, Vindigo Creative. Yeah.
Yep. And so he's joining us here, and it's very early where he's at, so thanks for getting up early and joining us.
Not a problem at all. Easy.
Cool. Before we get too far into it, we just want to thank our sponsor, Auto Solutions, because without them, we couldn't make this podcast. So for those who didn't know, they make cold box, command box, force box, test box, and including a new language, box slang. There's a few ways you can say thanks back to Auto Solutions. One of them is to buy tickets to ITB, our conference, Into the Box in Washington, in May this year, or I guess April if you come into the workshops, April and May this year. And like and subscribe to our videos on YouTube, and leave us a review on our podcast player. There's also some books online too. You can get some books from Gumroad. We've got the 102 Coldbox HMVC quick tips and tricks up on Gumroad, and on Amazon we have the hardcover version, and we also have Modern CFML in 100+ minutes. So we've rewritten those and made some adjustments. You can get them online or paper copy if you want to as well. So I'll share a couple of links there for those.
And I should probably say, like, the books are really good. I mean, particularly the Learn Modern Cold Fusion in 100 Minutes is a really good book to give to people who come from this legacy Cold Fusion, like 5-tech knowledge kind of background, and want to see and understand like how Cold Fusion can be used, or like CFML as a language can be used these days.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a big part of the book too. I mean, it's building on top of, sort of the old Learn. I mean, I think even the Learn CFML in a week, those types of things are really good. But Luis really went and really wanted to modernize it. And so this is trying to really highlight those features. And again, for someone new to the language, or even someone who's been doing it for a long time but just isn't used to all the new things, it definitely is a big one. And again, free online if you want to go check out that link at modern-cfml.autisbooks.com. So that's free, and yeah, it's definitely a good one. I've given it to some kids actually that were learning some languages in school, and so gave it to a couple of kids as well, just to have them get used to it, and like it's just like JavaScript, a lot of the same syntax. It's easier for them to understand, and moving from that whole scratch type stuff, and it's pretty easy to get going with. So yeah, cool. Yeah, so those are a few ways you can say thanks back to Auto Solutions. Again, thanks for helping us run this podcast. But we also have 60 patrons now, so up to 60 now. So we got some great Patreon supporters, and you can find out more about Patreon at patreon.com/autosolutions. And we've got a few different packages up there, and we have a few perks, which we'll tell you about at the end of the show. Okay, well, let's get into the news. And I saw something released today. So a new vulnerability was reported and released public today. So I saw that CISA added that critical Cold Fusion vulnerability, and it's tracked as CVE 2024-2767. And of course, if you're up to date with your patches, you would have already patched this because Adobe released the patch way back in March, which is pretty awesome to see. There are several proof of concepts exploits that have been published online, and I actually saw a few from GitHub just recently, just the last week or two. So it looks like a lot more people are getting those exploits out there, and it's just another reason you should make sure you keep up to date with your patches. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's still too many people running very old versions of Adobe Cold Fusion. Like, I've seen Cold Fusion 11 servers and like stuff like that, and
I know
Cold
there's
Fusion
some
2016
CF9s around
servers.
that,
Yeah, that,
yeah,
these people need to move on. Basically, that's just becoming a problem.
yep, for sure. It's definitely an issue. And this type of vulnerability too gives improper access control weakness that leaves
Yeah,
unauthenticated remote attackers can read the system over sensitive files, and basically they can get into the system and do all sorts of arbitrary file writes, and you can imagine how that can cause all sorts of problems.
yeah,
So, but again, good to see that Adobe was, ahead of the ball game, and that's one thing with the way the security stuff works. Usually, if someone submits a security um, issue, the company has time to patch it before it's released publicly, so they have a chance to solve that issue. So, good to see Adobe was on speed, and in March, so that's a long time ago. So,
yeah.
very cool. Also, there was a blog post released as part of the new Adobe 2025 beta, which is now out, by the way. The beta is now open, but there's some upcoming deprecations and removal in Cold Fusion 2025 release. And so I'm going to,
Finally, that's so good. Good to see.
yep, for sure. So I'm going to actually just see if I can open this in a new window, and I'll share it for those looking. So change that up. Yeah, so the CFN code SH has been added to the table of removals. Updating updated customizing HTTP response to HTTP reason phrases, and I guess they've deprecated some stuff, deprecated unsupported, but they're also removing things, which is kind of funny because they've had a really backwards compatible sort of view for a long time, and they never remove anything, right? So
Yeah. But I mean, you can see why that is a problem, right? Like if you never remove any feature, your language becomes cluttered and bloated, and also like the implementation of things gets harder, right? Like I mean, if you always have to make sure like, code from, I don't know, 1997 still works unchanged, at some point it becomes just like a chain that drags you down in the water pretty much. And the other thing to be aware with these deprecations and removal notices, nothing is going to be removed in Cold Fusion 2025 from what I understand, right? Like none of these things. When they say it's deprecated in 2025, it means it will be removed in the next version after 2025. Or sorry, it will be officially deprecated and unsupported in the next version after 2025. And when it says eventual removal, that basically means it will be removed in the second version after 2025. So this is not like, they take anything of these things away right now in the next release of Cold Fusion, but it's a very clear statement like it will go. You need to move on if you're using these features basically and use something else as a replacement.
yeah, and so the stuff that's actually going to be removed is on this list here. But like for the example, a deprecated feature is the CAR, the Cold Fusion Archive, is
Yeah.
saying use CF setup as an alternative. CF Cookie, I guess Tomcat removed the support for legacy cookie processing, but 2025 will support it to maintain backwards compatibility.
Yeah.
But as far as removals go, there is some removal. So the mobile and all mobile related features are actually being removed. So they will be gone.
Yeah. That
Yeah,
is being removed because they have been deprecated already in previous releases. Right? So
exactly. Yep.
that's different, right? This is not like necessarily stuff that is now being deprecated from now on. This has been deprecated years ago and finally it gets taken out.
Yep, exactly. And so removed Adobe Flash Flex stuff. Obviously, that's been gone for quite a while. But yeah, so the CFN code and whatever utilities due to security reasons and the license scanner or whatever basically being removed as well. Some CFMX compat algorithms. So a lot of stuff there. It's actually quite a lot.
What
I'm
are
surprised seeing so many.
what are XML forms? Is that the Adobe Lifecycle forms? I can't even remember what XML forms was as a feature.
Yeah, I think when they had the forms, you could choose the format you were going to output them to. But yeah, I mean, this stuff is all so old. Like I said, it's been
Yeah.
deprecated for years. And same thing for all the Flash and Flex jars are finally being removed. and then the AWS S3 ACL, I guess, access controller stuff, because they changed the way
Yeah,
that
because
works.
Amazon has changed the underlying system for that. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, so interesting. But CF header, Tomcat's already removed the status text attribute for it. So you can use the list instead. And then Sybase, man, yeah, some old ones in there for sure.
Mm.
And yeah, and so the following features will be removed because the features deprecated in previous versions. So like CF schedule, CF media player, CF table, HTML edit format using code for HTML instead. CF inserts are being removed as well. So, or actually, maybe just some attributes of CF
Yeah.
inserts.
I
So,
mean, I mean, there's stuff in here like parameter exists, for example, that was deprecated in Cold Fusion MX. Cold
yep,
Fusion MX was Cold Fusion 6. I mean, like this is
yeah,
2003 or something like that. So
uh,
it was time. Let's just say it like that. It's good that they removed that, and it was time for removing that and cleaning up some of these old features that have been deprecated for such a long time.
yeah, for sure. So anyway, that's a pretty big post. So anyone who is using older code and migrating, that's definitely something to be aware of as you're making that move. Because hopefully you'll see these security vulnerabilities that, oops, we should be updating. So something to keep into consideration there. And so I'll share that link for the blog post as well. And then, like I said, also the beta is open and out. So if you guys want to look, you can go sign up. And there's a lot of great information in there. And in a couple of sections, we'll talk about some of the meetups. And there's actually quite a lot of stuff that they've done as part of the whole beta release. There's about 10 webinars they did last week, which are available if you join as well. So
Yeah, these webinars were basically showcasing new functionality and like changes in functionality mainly. And I think it was a quite good way of doing that. And when you look at the dates, they were basically kind of scheduled before and after Adobe CF Summit in India. So they basically used a lot of the content from the webinars as talks at CF Summit as well, or talk about new Cold Fusion features and things like that. And I think some of the features that are showcased in these webinars are actually quite cool. In
yeah,
particular, one thing I'm, I personally really like a lot is the changes they made to CF chart. So that's
okay,
really interesting what they've done there.
very cool. Yeah, I'll have to actually see that one. I know a lot of people did not like how the old chart library sort of got stuck in the past, and that's definitely been
Yeah,
an issue.
it
A
is a
lot of
completely it's a completely new library now, and it from what I can tell, it's much more flexible and much more suitable for like things like modern approaches from data science. I mean, we're not talking about like, a replacement for Python or like,
yeah,
charting libraries in actual data science here. But, it has a lot of new chart and graph types like box plots and stuff like that, which these days are expected to be there when you provide a charting library more or less. And so it has, I mean, like the new library in 2025 has caught up with these modern requirements, which is good.
very cool. Okay, well, let me jump to new releases and updates. And so, obviously, we did a podcast last week, so not as many releases, but Boxlang has got Beta 25 released. And again, we're working hard for the big release coming out here soon of Boxlang as a stable release candidate. And so, we have, in the last week, we had 8 new features, 14 improvements, and 18 bug fixes. So, if you guys are looking at what's going on with that release, I'm going to be sharing it here.
So Boxlang is coming along a nice way as well. I'm really happy to see what you guys are doing there. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, we've got a lot going on. Like I said, they're working hard to get it to a nice stable release point. And so we're aiming for, basically, I think around the end of January to get a stable release candidate out. And
Mhm.
so it's a lot of bug fixes, improvements are just really cleaning everything up. So Denny Valiant's actually in the chat here. So top of the morning, depending on the time zone. He's asking if the code scanner for Boxlang scan for the deprecated bits. So the code scanner right now, it's checking to see basically what you're running against what the Boxlang supports in the CFML compatibility bit. So I know that with the deprecations, they're looking at having to update that, but I'm not sure where they're drawing the line yet. If they're still supporting 2023 sort of CFML stuff, or if they're going all the way to 2025 with that. But a lot of those extra pieces, to be honest, the things that have been deprecated for years, they're basically were as an extra special piece. So it's like we've supported the core with Boxlang, and then we're trying to add all those extra pieces. And so if you run the audit tool and you find a bunch of code that doesn't run in Boxlang and it should, then people have been reporting to that to us, and then we've been basically adding the little compatibility pieces to make that work. So most of those deprecated bits probably aren't in people's code that they're giving to us. And so it's one of those things, if you really want CF table to work and we haven't implemented it, you could make your own module. But we're probably not focusing on that one since, not a lot of people are using CF table, for example. So the scanner is basically just seeing what's currently supported in the tool we've built. So I know that we have a code checker that can look for deprecation pieces. So basically the code checker has a bunch of pre-built tools, and if you wanted to, you could actually go and create rules for all the new deprecated pieces and then actually run it against your code and say, hey, look for CF 2025 deprecated code, and you could do that. So the code checker is a tool, and that does have a command box item. But as far as the Boxlang one, that one doesn't specifically look for deprecated pieces. It just sort of shows, hey, what do we currently support? And so it tries to pass it using the AST that we built. And so if it can't pass it or it doesn't know what to do with it, that's when you'll get a report on it. So, but I'm assuming none of that stuff is probably in there because, we're probably not supporting stuff that's been gone since MX was 2000, MX6 was 2003?
Yeah.
Something like that. 20 plus years ago. Deprecated for 20 years, probably safe to get rid of it. So
yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay. Well, so Boxlang, again, lots of stuff coming out. We should have another release this week. And we might have a bit of a break Christmas, I'm not sure. But we get into the end of January, big stable release is the goal. Okay, we have some meetups and workshops. So we have one coming up on the 18th, so tomorrow, my time. All I Want for Christmas is AI with Luke Kilpatrick, and that's through SAC Interactive Meetup. So Nolan Irk runs that meetup. And so there's a link here I'll share if you want to sign that up with that. You can check that out online. And if you do sign up, you better get the recording afterwards too.
And next month, I'll be doing a talk at SAC Interactive, actually.
Oh, you will?
Meetup. Yep.
Cool. What are you going to be speaking about?
I'm going to talk about databases in SQL for mobile developers. Which sounds weird when you hear about it, but you would be surprised how many mobile apps use a client-side database, basically, like SQLite or something like that, or some sort of an ORM layer. And a lot of mobile devs I found over the years, because I'm doing Android and Flutter work as well, have really no concept of the SQL behind it. It's being used as an object store essentially for most folks. Yeah. And I gave a similar talk at DroidCon this year in Europe. And it was really interesting because you talk about stuff like select and insert and update and tables and stuff like that. And a lot of people are like, oh, wow, that's what's going on behind the scenes. And I'm like, yeah, actually it does. So, what is totally normal for people who do backend work is, something amazingly new for some other folks who have never really had to interact with the technical layer behind a database or a client-side storage or something like that.
Yeah, and that's one thing I really noticed when I do a lot of JavaScript stuff. I mean, in Cold Fusion, everyone's done SQL forever because it made it SQL really easy.
Exactly, yeah.
And then ORMs came, but people kind of didn't like ORMs. They didn't really jump onto them. But almost everyone in JavaScript is using an ORM like Drizzle or something. Yeah. And so when you go to talk about SQL, they all freak out. Like, what? I don't do that. Or they never touch the backend, like you said. And so someone else is doing all that work and they're just using an API to get it. But yeah, there's a lot of buzz around the SQLite stuff. There's a ton of marketing going on with that. They've done a lot of work lately. And they've actually released a SQLite service too. But yeah, a lot of people using it because of how flexible it is and how portable it is, and it's pretty dang fast too. So that's very cool. So okay, well, I put a note in it for next month. We'll have to add it to the list once it comes out.
Yeah.
Definitely,
Cool.
we'll check that one out. So yeah. And then we was an online CF meetup last week. So on December 12th, Charlie Earhart hosted the online CF meetup, and Dakota Klum was talking about from development to deployment, load testing your Cold Fusion applications. And so he talked about that, and we have a link here. So I will post the link in the show notes in the chat if anybody wants to go check that out up on YouTube. And I don't see any more posted for the new year yet from there. And again, next up we have that Adobe CF 2025 beta seminars, and these are all being pre-recorded now, but it looks like there's 10 of them. And so there's, yeah, spreadsheets and CSV processing, Microsoft Graph integration with OAuth, container stuff, VS Code plugin changes. And so, oh yeah, the unleash the power of revamping CF charts for modern applications. That's the one you were talking about.
Yeah.
So yeah, so if you sign up for the beta, you'll get access to all those, and yeah, a lot of great videos there. So 10 of them. And the last one was actually a recap Q&A with Mark Takata. So there's probably lots of good questions and answers to go through with that one as well. Cool. Okay, let's jump into CFcast. And so good news is CFcast, Merry Christmas to everybody, because if you got a paid subscription, you now have access to all the 2024 Into the Box videos. So we've got that released. I confirmed it is available for all subscribers. I thought we were doing it a little earlier, but I guess I got my dates messed up. So sorry for everybody who went to look and say it was still a premium package. But if you go to cfcast.com, you'll be able to see all the Into the Box 2024 videos. So 20 plus videos there. And then obviously some other new little snippets from the podcast and everything else too. So, and then in the new year, we're going to be releasing a lot more videos. I'm sure there'll be some boxing ones, but also some straight CFML ones coming up as well. So go check out CFcast. Okay, now conferences. So we did mention last week that we just missed CF Summit India, but Kai was at CF Summit India, right? So you can give us
I
a
didn't
little
miss
bit of
it. Yeah,
feedback.
I was there. Yeah, it was really cool. It was my first time in India, which was interesting and fun and bizarre and weird and everything you can imagine it was basically for like a dude from Germany and New Zealand. But it was an amazing trip, really, and I can totally recommend people looking at that event seriously to visit. So I should maybe explain the backstory of this whole thing a little bit.
Yeah.
At CF Camp this year in Munich or in Freising, Mark Takata was there, right, for Adobe as a representative. And one evening we were sitting on the terrace of the hotel having a beer, and it was like Nolan, Mark, and me and a few other people basically. And we were talking about like Adobe CF Summit, and like Mark was like, "Hey Kai, you've never been at the summit, like, why is that?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, Las Vegas doesn't really excite me," and it doesn't really, to be honest. It's not like a city I, you know, find particularly exciting. Sorry, all Americans. I know you love Las Vegas, but like, it's not really my thing. And I thought like, but you know, a CF Summit in India, if there was a call for papers and people could actually apply, I would seriously apply and consider going if my talk gets selected. And I'm not sure if Mark actually triggered that with Kishore's team, but all of a sudden there was a call for papers available publicly.
Yeah.
And I, as I said, submitted a topic and it got selected. And then within like a month, I had to organize a trip to India, including what feels like 29 million vaccinations that I didn't have. So that was kind of interesting and challenging, but it all went super well. But I mean, that's kind of the story. So I have to thank Mark and Kishore for making that possible behind the scenes, probably in some way.
Yeah, well, that's cool. Yeah, because usually CF Summit, it's a smaller conference, just a 1 day one, and so usually, yeah, they usually hand select the speakers, and obviously it's a usually great opportunity to see more of the Cold Fusion engineers speaking, since most of them are in India, and not as many can make it out to CF Summit in Vegas. So, but yeah, it was cool to see that you're on there, and I was like, yeah, that was very cool. So
Yeah, so the event is really interesting, the way how they ran it this year at least. It was across two locations. So there was Bangalore and Noida, which is basically up in Delhi. Um, and the two venues were connected with a permanent video link, essentially. So some talks happened in Noida, some other talks happened in Bangalore,
Mm.
and the other room or rooms were basically linked in remotely then. I would probably say the majority of the talks was in Bangalore, maybe, I don't know, 70s 30 kind of from a ratio point of view. And Bangalore was definitely the bigger venue in terms of attendees,
Yeah,
which makes sense because a lot of the tech firms that people would work for are actually in Bangalore, in the Bangalore region, I
yeah,
think.
that makes
Um,
sense.
but it was kind of important for them to cater for the Delhi um, attendee base as well, because apparently you still have a good bunch of folks up there, and they wouldn't necessarily travel to Bangalore for for the conference. So there was a demand from the community up in Noida that there is an event for them basically, and then they set it up and linked it together. And I
Yeah.
think that worked really well from a practical point of view. I didn't see many issues and trouble after it was set up and working in the morning basically.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great idea. I mean, to bring another venue in, especially when the location matters and they got a big enough group elsewhere to do that. And I know, like, Vegas, obviously, there's restrictions on sort of union stuff, and that's usually the biggest
Mm,
reason that CF Summit in
mm,
Vegas can't do that much is the union. So, um,
mm,
it's prohibitively expensive. Like, so I think it would
yeah.
like double the cost of doing the event just to have some online, just or video stuff.
Okay.
So yeah, but yeah, that's super cool. I was wondering how they were gonna do it, and it made sense to have that. And it was nice they had some speakers live in Noida too. So
Mm.
very cool.
So it was a great event, and I mean, like when you're a Westerner and you've never been to India, basically, you are a bit like, oh my God, how is it gonna be? And like, is it gonna be chaotic? And it's like, will I find my way and everything? But I mean, apart from the folks at Adobe being super nice and super helpful, um, everyone is like super nice and super helpful. The traffic is crazy though in Bangalore. I mean, like this is absolutely mind blowing. Basically, you have like really short distances, like I don't know, a kilometer, and it takes you 20 minutes, 30 minutes just because of the traffic. You would walk faster than
Yeah,
actually using a car or an Uber or something like that. Um, but it's a very cool opportunity to experience a different culture and see a few different things. And I was using it also as a bit of a test balloon trip for like figuring out what we could do from a holiday point of view in India at further opportunities or further conferences. Because I said to Kishore already, like, if you're doing this again next year and there's a call for papers again next year, I will certainly apply and try to come back and like, then maybe spend like 2 weeks in India and doing a few other things at the same opportunity.
yeah, that'll be definitely pretty cool. Obviously, I'm a big fan of cricket, and India and cricket is a big thing. And New Zealand was actually playing there, I think, during that time or just right before it too. So yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
might or might not have made a comment on the New Zealand beating India on their own soil kind of situation.
yeah, it's because yeah, it's unheard of for anyone to beat India at home in a series, and yeah, New Zealand won all
Yeah,
three games, which was yeah crazy unheard of. And then we went home and lost badly to England.
like
So anyway, enough about the cricket, but
at
yeah,
like one of my clients, there is like a massive mixed team of people from India who some of them live in India, some of them live in Australia or New Zealand, and some Kiwis who are all very into cricket. And like the commentary when these games were happening in India was just hilarious to watch. And like, all the non-Commonwealth country folks are now like, what the H is cricket?
yep, uh, it's pretty funny. India's, I mean, they live and breathe for cricket, so it'd be
Yeah.
kind of just amazing just to go to a cricket stadium. It's like probably going to like a Michigan game here for college football or something, where it's just unruly and ridiculous. So, but
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, I've been to cricket games in Australia in the MCG, for example, but that wasn't an international game. But I mean, that was in itself a nice experience in a big, cricket stadium
Yeah,
essentially.
MCG is one of the biggest stadiums in the world as far as size of the pitch and everything. But I don't know about the crowds because they get just ridiculous numbers in India for sure. But
Yep.
yeah, well, that's awesome. I'm glad you enjoyed it and had a good time. And it sounds like you'll be back. So yeah,
That is my
good
plan at
opportunity.
least. Yep.
Yeah, I know Luis has attended in previous years as well, and everything, and he had a good time in India too. So yeah, very cool. Well, thank you for the more in depth sort of recount of it too. So much
Cool.
appreciate the insight. So very cool. Well, conferences next year. The next one up is Into the Box 2025. So we'll be hosting ours in Washington, D.C. So we're going to be doing the workshop on April 30th, and then May 1st and 2nd will be our 2-day workshop. 2-day conference. We basically had our call for speakers open. It's now closed. We're in the process of picking all the sessions right now. We've got a lot of great topics from the community. More than the previous years too. So we got a lot of interesting topics, a lot of AI stuff, but don't worry, we're not just going to pick AI. So there'll be some non-AI stuff there as well. But yeah, a lot of great community content, and we're just trying to fill the gap with some order stuff as well. So we'll be announcing that pretty soon. Hopefully we can get out there and get that list out there, hopefully by the end of the year. But if you haven't had the chance to buy tickets, the blind tickets are half off, and so they're 50% off the price right now. So you go to intothebox.org, you can go and get those tickets. So
Yep.
go check that out. We'll be happy to have you there. We got some great workshops, and we'll be releasing the workshop names here pretty soon, I believe. But yeah, we're excited to have you guys all out in DC again. We had a lot of fun last time, and I think we're trying to get some hotels a little closer. But it was a great spot right there in DuPont Circle in DC. You can walk to the Washington Monument or the White House or Lincoln, everything else there. It was super cool. And then the scooters were a lot of fun. Me and Kirk Gratz were hooning all over the city with them after the conference last year. It was a lot of fun. So
With like electric scooters or like Vespa type scooters,
I like the little electric ones. They have them. You can,
the ones you stand on basically.
yeah, little
Ah,
Bird.
okay.
They have Bird and all
Yeah.
these different brands. Even Uber ones. So you basically just scan your phone and away you go. And yeah, there's some pretty cool deals. But yeah, it was pretty fun. And they have probably they have the actual bike ones too. If you want to do like the electric bikes, you can rent those too. They're all
Yep.
over DC. But yeah, so a lot of fun. Good location, and then we're going to be doing more box slang and more CFML stuff there. So we'll be happy to see you there. But right after that, so a couple weeks later, CF Camp is happening, right? Tell us all about it, Kai.
Yeah. Coincidentally, I'm involved with that as well. Who would have thought? Yes, so CF Camp is happening again. It's May 22nd and 23rd, which is a Thursday and Friday, and there's probably going to be some pre-conference stuff happening on the Wednesday, the 21st. I would kind of hope that you guys are doing some workshops
I think we
and
are. I
then,
think we actually announced it last week or whatever that we have
okay.
a keynote or part of the keynote, and then we're doing a workshop as well. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, potentially 21st to 23rd, pretty much, but the 22nd and the 23rd are the days with the main conference event. We have changed venue. We used to be in a city called Freising, which is a bit north of Munich and a bit north of the airport in what was it, the Marriott Hotel out there. We've got a new venue which is called the Atomis Hotel, and it's still in the Munich airport vicinity, but in a different little town. And like little town is pretty much the correct description because there's not much more than a hotel actually in this little village. So it will have a bit more of a camp feeling. I have That's my expectation, because I think more things will be happening in the hotel and in the hotel restaurant itself, more or less, and not that much in like restaurants all over Freising, for example.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of the plan. We've got the call for speakers going, that opened about a month ago, roughly or so. It sits on papercall slash CFCamp 2025. It's basically the same URL as last year, just with a different year attached to that. And maybe Gavin can throw it into you've thrown it into the chat already.
Yep.
Cool. Um, The call for papers closes end of February, and then we aim to notify folks like about a week or 10 days after it closes, roughly, or at least the first batch of people. We've got a few submissions already, so it's looking quite interesting, but we obviously want more, and I don't think I've got anything from any one of the Autos team so far. I can't really tell 100% because we do blind submissions at CF Camp, so we don't look at who submitted a topic before we close the call for papers and before we evaluate the submission. So we only look at the content, give it a rating, and then we kind of unveil who submitted what.
Yeah.
But obviously, I mean, to be fair, you know the usual suspects, right? So there are people who submit talks on certain topics, and well, this can only be 2 or 3 people, right?
Yeah, usually.
In our community, that kind of thing.
Yep, you get surprised every once in a while, but usually it's the usual suspects, as you say.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So,
I know that Brad
so,
and Luis are planning on being there for sure, and we're figuring out who else might be able to travel that time. I know the one thing we had last year was ours was right before yours, I think a week before, and we had a lot of issues with graduations and high school events and stuff, and so that's the only thing that might play into it. So probably a lot of people are trying to wait for dates to figure out what their kids are doing for those who have kids in school.
Yeah.
But
we are a bit earlier this year, though. So, I mean, last year I think we were mid-June, so it's about 3 weeks earlier, which might make it a bit easier for folks, working around summer vacation and school holidays and stuff like that.
Yeah, it just depends on that last week. Usually the last week of school, there's a lot of graduations and sort of award ceremonies and stuff. So that's where it might be an issue. But I know that everyone who's been to CF Camp from the Autos team just raves about it, and so they're all like begging to be able to go back. So yeah, I'm sure you'll get a collection.
You've been saying for years that you want to come to CF Camp, Gavin.
Yeah, I know.
So it's about time.
I know I was working hard on it last year, and then some stuff came up. My parents weren't able to, actually they were able to travel the one year that I was going to come. And basically that's the last trip they'll probably make from New Zealand. So I couldn't tell them, sorry, you guys are coming, but we're from Germany. So
I'm not going to be here.
Yeah, but there's a lot of stuff going on with, my parents and in-laws and stuff. But yeah, I definitely do want to go. And my wife actually has family in Germany, and so it's definitely on the list. Probably like Scotch on the Rocks. I'll probably be able to go as soon as they stop doing it. So you have to keep it running for a little bit longer, because but definitely want to get out there and check it out. So
okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I mean, anyway, people submit some talks to CF Camp. Call for papers, please. We need more, and we want to build like an amazing conference again.
Yep,
and the variety of topics we're looking for is quite broad. I mean, it should have some sort of relationship to CFML, ideally, but it doesn't have to be like, what are the newest features in Boxlang or in Logical Fusion or in Lucy or something like that. It can be loosely connected to the core tech that we're using, or that we're all using.
Yeah, and that's the thing, even if it's adjacent to it, like I know before you've talked a lot about like JavaScript related things, because obviously you can use JavaScript alongside your CoFusion stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And in the past we had like, mobile development tool talks like about Flutter and like cross-platform development and React Native and stuff like that. So that all complements, the core idea of CF Camp, which is kind of a CFML layer.
Yeah. No, they say it sounds like a great conference. Everyone I know that's been there just loved it. And if you guys have the opportunity to go check it out, and again, submit a talk, and if they like the content, they can guide you to if you haven't spoken before. It's a great opportunity to get out, try something new, and I think it'll be a good one. So, and for those who are looking for other conferences, and maybe you want a warm-up conference before you go to a bigger one, if you want to speak, comps.tech has some cool options for smaller conferences, bigger ones online, different languages, different things. So check that out. And then I have to look and see. I don't know if you guys have put CF Camp on that list or not, but it's an open source list. So if you want to, you might want to submit it.
I'm just having a quick look.
Yeah, because you can post your call for speakers and stuff on there too. People do notice and submit stuff. So, but yeah, we try and keep them up to date with the CoFusion ones. So, but I'm not sure if we've done it lately. But yeah, but there's a lot of cool stuff on there. There's a lot of JavaScript ones, and everything to some Python, and so
Yeah. No, we're not on that. Interesting.
yeah.
I had a look at another conference website that does a similar thing like this site,
Hmm.
and we were on there, and I don't know who listed us, but we're not on this one. I'll need to fix that actually.
Yeah, it's just a little pull request. I think you'll use Markdown or something for it. So
Mm.
cool. Okay, well, moving on from conferences, we got blogs, posts, and videos of the week, and so we've got a few here. The first one up is from Auto Solutions. So unleash your 2025 potential into your savings with Auto Solutions. So this one's actually got some discount. So if you're not a subscriber to CFCast, you get the first year. If you sign up, you can get a discount there. And I might just share my screen actually, just for those who are watching. There's some interesting things in this one. But yeah, so you can get 20% off consulting plans if you want. You can also get 20% off some open source support. So obviously we have a lot of open source products, but you can pay for paid support. So if you want, you can do that too. And also if you want to use CommandBox Pro, you can get 20% off your first annual there. And we also have Audis PDF extensions. So if you want to get that, again, more discounts for that. CFCast subscriptions. And then also we've got Unlock the Power of Box Slang. So we have some licenses. Obviously, Boxlang is open source, but there's going to be a full-featured paid version, which gives you extra special stuff. And so if you want to find out more, you can go check out that blog post, and it has a little bit about that. But we're trying to do visionary licenses. So if you're basically supporting us, it's like sort of blind tickets. The visionary license gives you support, and I think I'm not giving all the details because I don't know them all for sure, but it's basically gives you like 10 years worth of support all at once, and it gets all sorts of special stuff. So if you want to check that out, there's some discounts on that as well, and the team will be happy to talk to you more about it. We got another one from Audis about cloud migration made easy, so the lift and shift approach for your database. So you guys want to check out that post. It tells you a little bit about how you might want to get started with cloud stuff. I want to pamela too much about Audis marketing stuff, so we'll jump into the next one here. And so I know you've done a lot of different languages, Kai. You've got more of a multi or polyglot sort of approach than me. I know that like Cold Fusion MVC got really popular, and this one from Ben is talking about co-locating views and view-specific components in Cold Fusion. And I don't know if you've read this one or not, but he sort of talks about how he's got models, views, and then view models, almost like the sort of the .NET had the model view model type or view set up. So they sort of had, on top of handlers, they had sort of view models, which was like specific versions of models just tuned up for that view. So wasn't sure if that's something you dealt with any of the other languages. Is any insight
It's a
in that?
quite yeah, it's a quite common approach in a lot of tech stacks, right? Like particularly when you look at mobile app development, you see that a lot, view models, and to an extent where, for example, in Android, that was for a long time the common way to do things. And I mean, it still is, but it's supported by almost the API and by official Google Android examples and stuff like that.
Okay.
And the idea is actually quite nice because it gives you that additional abstraction layer that where you have like, here's a bunch of, just to call them POJOs, for example, plain old Java objects or whatever technology you use. And these are somehow bound against your view, for example, in a view model. And then you change the content of your view model, and magically, with the bindings, your view updates essentially. And I think it's probably something like, early versions of Angular introduced into the JavaScript ecosystem, because if I remember correctly, Angular had kind of a similar thing. I'm not sure if it was called view model in there, but they came up with that idea of like bindings where you bind UI components to variables and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's just kind of an interesting approach. I mean, and I think in this article, Ben actually does refer back to, let's see, yeah, Uncle Bob, we talked about the application core and the delivery mechanism, basically. So, and it's sort of interesting because I know even with JavaScript, we talked about how things change over time, and we went and put everything in separate files, and then we sort of like the view stuff, you sort of bring back the, the script and the
Mm,
markup back on one page, and everyone's sort of fighting, as Ben said, the sort of the two things: the separation of concerns and then co-location of co-location of behaviors, and
yeah.
sort of the pendulum swings one way to the other way. And but yeah, so I mean, it's a good little article, and he sort of talks about how he sort of does that. And I kind of think of it a lot of times with the view model controller type setup. A lot of times my handler ends up being sort of almost like a view model, but it depends, because sometimes you need stuff a little bit more dedicated above it. And so, yeah, just levels of
Yeah.
abstraction. So it just depends. I mean, the thing is, with Quick and QB now, it makes it so easy to do all the databasey type stuff in the handler. We almost don't use it in the model as much because the model's doing some of it already, and Quick just gives you a nice way to do it.
Mm.
But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I
it's
would be personally probably I would want to avoid using Quick and QB and stuff like that in the handler, to be honest.
yeah,
I think that's putting it into a too high layer of your flow from my point of view. Um, then a view model or doing that from the model makes much more sense to me. I'm not sure if I would agree with the handler being the view model either, but I've never really thought about like a view model, an actual view model approach in Coldbox directly. I would have to have a think about where to put that and how to wire that all up.
yeah. I mean, essentially, like, the good thing about Quick, you have your CFC model, and inside of there you have scopes, and so in the handler you're just basically using scopes to get it. So it's kind of like a hybrid approach, which makes it easier, and it's not too dependent on the actual low level field names and everything, because the
Mm,
model is abstracting that away some. But yeah, it's one of those things. It's like, yeah, you could do, the whole bean approach where you have gateways and then services, and but a lot of times people just squish them together when they're doing simple things. And like an API, you're
yeah,
getting some variables, you're validating it, you're getting some data, and then returning it in JSON. It's not a lot. So in that
yeah,
respect, it's not the same as these complicated, interfaces that, um, that may need more of that manipulation and bringing together. Because I guess we're doing more of that view model piece inside of our JavaScript these days, and you're asking the API to pull the data for all the different pieces. And anyway,
yeah.
it's interesting. I
The
like Ben's thought process for analyzing it, and then.
the other thing, that would be interesting, and maybe Ben gets into that in a future blog post or something like that, is how do custom tags play a role in that, right? Because when you think about it, like, um, is a custom tag maybe the right place for a view model? So here's like my challenge to Ben Adele. Use a
Yeah,
custom tag system for your next blog post with this view model description
I mean, you
and
can almost think about
explanation.
it where the CFML view is your view model. Essentially, you're getting the data, and then you're giving it off to a JavaScript, you know,
Yeah, okay.
page too. Because
If you see the JavaScript layer kind of above that, as like your real view, yes, then potentially. It's
yeah,
interesting, right? I mean, there are so many shades of gray how you could do something like that, um, because there's just no prescription for like what is the official or the right way of doing it.
and that's the thing, is in the best practice is what works for you and your team and your situation, and
Yeah.
everything's a little different. And again, simple use cases, you probably don't need it. Yeah,
Yeah,
as
it's a
Denny
bit
says,
like
it depends.
the simple use cases thing is like a good recommendation for like life in IT anyway. Like if you are like a team of three people and you build like a small product or a medium-sized product, you probably don't need to mimic the microservices architecture of Netflix for your system. It's probably gonna not gonna be great for you, the experience.
Yep,
Just like yeah, saying.
yep, exactly. Yeah, so I always like Ben's stuff. He always, he ponders it out loud, which I like, because it makes me think for sure. And
Yeah.
yeah, cool. I appreciate
So
your
was there
insight.
just one post from Ben this week? This is like disappointing.
Well, he had a couple of other ones which were more, a little more JavaScripty, so I didn't dive into those ones too much. But yeah, we did have another one from the Adobe team, and so I'll share my screen for this one. But this is about the Tomcat upgrade with 2025, because the big thing is they've upgraded to Tomcat 10, upgrading from Tomcat 9, and
Yeah.
now it now supports Servlet Specification 6, replacing the Specification 4.0 that was there before. So that does some pretty interesting things. I know Brad says that requires them to make a few changes in command box, which they've been wanting to do for a while. So finally, someone's doing the newest specifications, so he gets to play with that. But yeah,
So what happened to Servlet specification 5.0? Did that never exist, or did actual implementations just jump over that?
a good question, to be honest. I'm not sure because Tomcat 9 was Servlet 4.0 and Tomcat 10 jumped straight to 6. So yeah, good question. And maybe wonder if it's one of those like JavaScript ones where they just missed a whole release year because it took them 5 years to go to the next version or whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah, so basically, Tomcat introduces many new features. So improved performance and enhanced security, compatibility with new Java applications, support for newer specifications like that. Um, and
I mean, for all practical purposes, right? Like for most people using Cold Fusion, this is an internal change.
yeah,
Sure, you have to change something, but in your day-to-day application development, this will not make a huge difference for most folks.
yeah. I think the interesting thing is this allows them to move up to like the was it Java 21 now instead of
Yeah,
going from 11,
yeah.
which is a big deal. Um, but yeah, I like this. How to upgrade or update your Java Air code base if required is like migration is a tedious process, but Eclipse has provided a tool for the rescue. So yeah, so there's a transformer you can get. So
Yeah.
anyway, but yeah, if you need it, jump into that. And of course, there's a lot of people out there that specialize in updates and upgrades and stuff like this. And I'm sure Charlie Earhart will probably have a couple of sessions on it or lots of blog posts on it. He goes in depth on this type of thing. But hopefully,
Yeah.
like I said, it shouldn't affect us too much on our day to day. And hopefully,
Yeah.
once we've
I'm
upgraded, we
not
should be
saying
good.
the upgrade is going to be like super smooth and without trouble, right? Like, but what I mean is from a day-to-day coding point of view and like how your applications are being built, that will not make a huge difference for anyone from my point of view. The upgrade process and like, getting onto the new version, particularly if you have done installs like, I don't know, for example, and let's say a native Tomcat and you deployed Cold Fusion as a WAR file into that, or some custom install, that will probably involve some work to get it going with the new Adobe Cold Fusion version, with changing to Tomcat 10, replicating your configuration and stuff like that. So also I would kind of expect if you followed everything in the how's it called, the lockdown guide or the hardening guide for Cold Fusion,
Yeah.
there are a bunch of modifications for Tom on the Tomcat level recommended. So if you've done these, you need to have a really close look into what the implications are um, when you upgrade to Adobe Cold Fusion 2025 and then Tomcat 10, and how that plays out with these configuration tweaks you had to make to lock down Cold Fusion, let's say 2021 or 2023 or something.
Yeah. And I mean, Denny knows a lot about the underlying pieces. And he says moving servlet things into the Jakarta package is it's a beta. So
Yep.
yep, so that'll be fun. But yeah, hopefully we can hopefully the tools will make it easier for us to do that. So but yeah, so but good to know. I'm glad to see them releasing this type of information publicly earlier too, so people are more aware and ready for the change. Okay, we have another blog post from Otis about how to extend the lifespan of your Cold Fusion application, but that's more pitched at managers, so we'll skip over that one a little bit. But next up, we have one from James Moberg, and I really like this one. It's a Cold Fusion CF dump alternative.
Hmm.
I don't know if you've seen this one or not, but it's kind of
I
sweet.
have, yeah.
Yeah. And
It's interesting because it provides so much more additional information and it gives you the underlying Java types for, fields in Cold Fusion variables or in CFML variables. So that's quite useful. Yeah.
yes,
Depending on how you work and what you're doing, obviously.
yeah, I really liked it. And the fact is, it doesn't give you a ton of JavaScript and everything too. Like it really cleans up what it puts into your page, so makes it more efficient when you're dumping. I know the old dump had a lot of code that it would inject, and sometimes
Mhm.
repeatedly if you had multiple dumps too. But yeah, the format is pretty neat. But like you say, like next to the numeric, it tells you what type is double or not. String gives you the length, etc. So yeah,
Yeah,
some
and the interesting thing is it will actually make it very visible for people how the internal implementation of Cold Fusion variables have changed over the years. I mean, you see stuff like, I don't know, a struct, for example, is Cold Fusion runtime struct ordered, right? Or like an array is Cold Fusion runtime array. Um, if you go back a few versions of Cold Fusion, you might find that there are totally different classes being used for these kind of things, right? And that obviously has an implication on like your hacked code, because I'm guilty of that in the past myself, right? Like sometimes you
Yep.
can get so much better performance on, I don't know, whatever, like Adobe Cold Fusion, Lucy, you name it, when you try to use the underlying Java types of a certain variable and use built-in functions that come maybe from an array in Java. And you get some other functionality, and sometimes you get better performance, basically. But if you do that, you're obviously leaving the official kind of like CFML language spec, and then you end up in that little like hell circle of like, okay, Cold Fusion update all of a sudden changes the underlying type because it was never documented, and I clearly abused the system here, and
Yeah.
now all my code breaks, and I have to fix it somehow.
Yeah, I know a lot of people were using member functions from the underlying Java things before, and
Yeah,
then Adobe added their own member function and
yeah,
changed the way they did it, and that bit people. But yeah, I'm sure the
yeah.
same
But I
thing
mean,
applies when you
yeah.
do that. So
Yeah. But I mean, regardless, this makes this very transparent, which is good, right? Like if you've used, I mean, even if you haven't used that, right? It's nice additional information to have because you understand better what's going on under the hood.
yeah,
But even if you have used these undocumented language kind of features from the Java layer, this will make it very obvious, like, where the potential pain points in your code will be after you upgrade to a new version where something internally might have changed, for example.
yeah, for sure. If it's giving you an error and you dump right before it, you can see, oh, that's the type. That's not what I was expecting. Okay, that
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah, and it's much cleaner. And I actually posted this in the Boxlang channel just to say, hey, in case you guys want to improve the dump. And they're like, well, we already have 80% of that in there, but we did get some ideas. And apparently they already looked at it when James posted last week, so they're already ahead of me. But yeah, so
Yeah,
it's
it's a cool little tag.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. It's pretty awesome. Okay, next up we have an important notice upcoming deprecations removals in Cold Fusion 2025, which we discussed earlier, so we'll sort of highlight over that one really quickly. I will post the link in case anybody wants to bookmark that to read in more depth. We did have another blog post from Ordis, unlock unmatched performance and savings Ordis solutions, Cold Fusion AMIs on AWS Marketplace. So if you're on AWS and you're wanting to look at some AMIs, Ordis has a few different ones there that you can go look at. And we'll highlight over that. And then Boxlang Beta 2025 was released, and again, a lot of work there. They've really solidified the ASM bytecode box piler, so the default compiler, and done a lot of work for the query of queries. So remember, Brad did a bunch of stuff with Lucy to get the query of queries working better, faster, with more features, and he's done that and added a bit more with Boxlang. So we think there's a lot in there. It's getting more and more stable every week. So if you haven't checked it out, check it out. And again, thanks to everybody who's been, running this every week, giving us feedback, and for those who are brave enough to run it in production already, that's awesome, and we really appreciate that. And yeah, it's great to see so much interest. So we've had quite a lot of people, reaching out about it, and even had other people saying they've been asked questions about it, which is kind of cool. So some community members, people that are coming to them are asking about it as well. So a lot of cool stuff. We're excited about it. So that wraps up our blogs, tweets, and videos of the week. On our Find a Job on getcfmljobs.com. Currently, there's no new postings. There are a few postings from the last few weeks there if you want to go check it out. They've got 22 Cold Fusion positions listed across 21 companies, across 15 locations in 5 countries. And then on CFML Slack and the Box Team Slack, there are some job channels too. And on the Facebook groups and LinkedIn groups, people are posting jobs. So if you know of anyone looking, or looking for people, let us know. We'll post them on here. And then obviously those places are good places to go to as well. But I think probably at Christmas time, everyone's just trying to get ready for that season.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Okay, so next up we have our ForgeBox module of the week. And this time we're going to talk about one by Eric Peterson, CB Security Passkeys. So are you using passkeys much, Kai?
No, I avoid them like the plague, to be
Oh,
honest.
you do. So
Yep.
I thought they were meant to be the savior. So what is your reason for avoiding them?
I find the way how they are pushed on people and how they are tied to devices like browsers and like mobile phones not really helpful. I think like quite honestly, I think like passwords are not as bad. People always say like passwords are like, oh, they're complicated to memorize. Use a password manager. Use like a long cryptic password from your password manager.
Yep.
And if you want to have an additional layer of security, use like a hardware token. Like get a UB key, basically. And but passkeys are for a bunch of reasons, like not I don't see them as the savior of IT security, to be honest. They are complicated, clunky, people don't really understand. I get like, for example, every time I try to log in or log into my Air New Zealand frequent flyer account, they try to push a passkey on me, and it's so annoying. So annoying. You wouldn't believe it. So I'm not a fan. No.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean the module is bad, right? The module is probably fine if Eric has done that. So
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. It's definitely a good thing. I mean, basically for site owners, it's really meant to help common attack vector, reduce them, to allow you to really be a little bit more secure. People with passwords are bad, then we end up doing password resets, and the two-factor stuff people doing SMS can be cloned, and so passkeys in general.
Can I say something on that specifically? SMS being cloned or SIM cards being cloned, that is to 99% a US problem.
Fair enough.
Because like all these SIM card hacks seem to come from the US. I've never seen, and I don't want to say they don't exist, but like in the vast majority of countries, these SIM card hacks are not possible.
Hmm.
And I'm not sure what exactly the difference is, but they all stem in US mobile providers. And there must be something systemic that is kind of weird how this access to SIM cards or like providing a new SIM card or moving a mobile number is handled in the US, I think, compared to other places of the world.
Yeah. I mean, I know that's meant to be a really easy way to get, for people to do it. I haven't actually looked too much about how to do it or whatever, but that does make sense that it's, probably it could be very much the United States, especially if there is you know, a way to do it. But I mean, they're moving to eSIMs now, Denny says, but I don't know if that makes it any easier or not, because then it's like, okay, I want to move it to this new eSIM instead of that
Yeah, you
eSIM.
move a token to a different device essentially to some extent, right? So that
Yeah.
doesn't make it easier necessarily. I think like the core issue is you shouldn't make it too easy, or you can't make it too easy for people to just transfer a number to a new SIM. If you can do that over the phone, basically, any man and their dog can do that for you. Require people to go into a store, show like a passport or like an official ID at least, or something like that, right? Like make it hard to do these kind of things. And
Yeah.
then that problem goes away to some extent. The other thing is, I mean, SMS technology in general is not safe, right? Like so many people or so many site owners provide two-factor authentication via SMS. I would probably, again, like there are ways to do this, like Google Authenticator, Authy, like use a token generator or something like that. And I understand that for non-IT people, that's weird. If I had to give my mother like Google Authenticator, she would get like, what do I do with this? Why do I need to have that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
I understand the problem, but I don't think passkeys are the solution. And SMS are probably not the ideal solution either, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Not for sure. I mean, I think it's really interesting. And then Roddy B said Vertesium's video about SIM card hijacking is kind of scary. And yeah, if you look at some of those, you won't want to use them anymore. But I mean, just getting people to use a password manager is hard enough these days than any other things. And I know a lot of things about passkeys are meant to be better, but you're right though, they do pop up and annoy you. And then, but yeah, it's one of those things. It's nice to have. I mean, it's basically like an app on your phone. Once you've logged into the app, you're good for so long. The same type of thing applies with the passkey. It's just gives you a little bit more long-lived passwords in a secure fashion. And but again, I'm sure that people can probably do the same thing, duplicate or simulate your device and your keys. And who knows? But anyways, the passkeys added for cybersecurity by Eric was it's a really cool module if you want to actually start offering them. So if that's something you want to offer, he actually did the session at Into the Box 2024. So we actually have a session link here as well. So if you do want to find out more about it and you've got a paid subscription to CFcast, you can see that video. And if you need to, let me know. I might even be able to get that one switched over to free if people want to see that one who don't have a paid subscription, because I think that's something worth looking at. But again, I'm gonna have to do some more looking into the passkeys and everything. But I know that that's sort of the big craze right now. Everyone's saying it's gonna improve things a lot. So we'll see. I'm curious too. But the thing is, like you say, if you've got a passkey on one device and then you're using another device, does it still allow you to do your password? Do you have to go use, I'm still curious, like, how does it affect the devices that you don't have passkey set up on yet? Because if you have
And
one,
there are other, I mean, like practical problems. If you use multiple browsers, passkeys are not really helping you super amazingly. Then what if you have only one device and you lose your passkey and you don't have access to that device anymore? And there's so many like clunkiness issues around them. But I mean, I don't want to continue the rant about passkeys. I just
yeah,
don't like them. I don't think they are
yeah. I
a
mean, I think
solution for.
using them as one of the solutions is a good option,
Yeah.
But yeah, because it's basically like you basically make your device into like a YubiKey type thing. Essentially, that's kind of what you're doing with them.
Yeah,
Is
kind
you're
of. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the one thing I always worry about YubiKeys. Like, I will put it on my disk and I will not be able to find it, or I'll put it in my bag and I'll
Well,
forget which
I've
bag it's in.
I've
But
got them. I've got one on my keyring, for example.
yeah,
I mean, that's the other thing with YubiKeys, right? Like you, depending on what you use them for and how you use them, you need multiple ones.
yeah,
Because like if they are the only thing that allows you to log into your computer and to your hardware physically, you really don't want to have a single one with that with that authentication. And
yeah,
like I mean, I'm not sure how it works on Windows, but on Mac and Linux, you can actually do that quite nicely, right? So you can't even log into your computer if you don't have your YubiKey dongle put in. So, but I need to make sure, obviously, if you do that, that you have two or three of them, ideally in different locations. That if your house catches fire or whatever, like, you know, you at least don't lose access to your data and that kind of stuff. So, it while I think they are a better solution, they have their own complications, obviously.
yeah, and yeah, like everyone's saying in the chat, there's always pros and cons for everything, and yeah,
Yep.
context
Yeah, that is
matters.
true.
But
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, so that's the much debated module of the week. Cybersecurity passkeys. If you want to add passkeys to your cybersecurity applications, you can
Yeah.
accept them with
Let
that.
me let me say again, Eric, I love your work. It's an awesome module, probably. I still have the issues with the passkeys.
It's okay. Just like some people don't like JWTs and other stuff as well.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's always pros and cons for everything. But yeah, I think you're right though. It's more the UI in your face, like jamming it down our throats, is bugged me more about them than anything else. Because when that first started, and that's all I saw, I didn't want anything to do with them for a while. So
You know what? I have another pet peeve around that. Sorry, it's a total tangent, but like, why not?
yeah, sure.
So instead of SMS authentic or 2FA, when people send you SMS to your mobile phone number, another thing that I've seen happening is people somehow figure out if you have WhatsApp attached to your phone number, and all of a sudden they send you a WhatsApp message. And I
Mm,
had that recently with, I think it was Air India on my India trip, right? So all of a sudden I got WhatsApp messages from them um, telling me like, oh, web check-in is open, or that's the stuff you can't take on the plane for security reasons, blah 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 blah. I'm like, huh? How is that a thing? And like, how did they even figure that out? So WhatsApp must have some API where you can actually look up phone numbers. And I'm not sure if there's a special rule for businesses or for site owners or something like that to use that to send you
yeah, I
information.
wonder if they
So it
used
was
it to
useful.
send it to you originally for the code, and then from there they could verify if you're in WhatsApp too.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how that works. I wanted to have a look into that, but I've seen it also, apart from Air India, being used for 2FA codes these days. So
Mm.
there was another company, New Zealand company, I'm not saying which one, that all of a sudden, instead of sending me an SMS, was sending me a WhatsApp message for like a 2FA code, like a one-time password kind of thing, essentially. And I'm like, huh? How? I never consented to that or never allowed you to do that. I mean,
Yeah. And that's
this
what
is
makes me
just
wonder
not
if they're
right.
using that service to send the SMS messages, if it basically bridges it at that point, and then it just
Yeah.
goes straight to that instead. Because that would annoy me too. Because I hate WhatsApp. Like I get so many messages all the time from random people adding me to groups and stuff, and I'm
And
like,
I
I've tried to change my settings so I can't do it, but it
yeah,
just blows up, and so I just have to like log out forever until I need
yeah.
it again because it drives me crazy.
And I guess as a parent, you're probably in about gazillion WhatsApp groups for school, parent pickups and sports pickup and that kind of stuff, right?
That's the funny thing is we don't use it very much here in America. It's not as
Ah, okay.
popular. Like we have all these other apps. We have like Band and Parent Square for teacher stuff and
Mm,
Class Dojo for teacher stuff. So I've got a bunch of all these different apps. But I know in a lot of other countries they use WhatsApp for everything and they've really
yeah.
marketed it well. But yeah, so I usually use it when I'm going to conferences to talk to people that are coming in from overseas and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
but yeah, it would be interesting if it was in one place, but then I'd be even more annoyed at all the crap I get to. So, anyways, okay. Next up, we'll do our VS Code hint tip trick of the week. And so, basically, the next one we're going to do, I thought we'd covered this, but I guess we haven't. So, in VS Code, we have a boxlang extension, and it supports boxlang, but also CFML functionality. So, it's a new and improved version of the VS Code extension. It's got built-in boxlang runtime for easy development, but it also gives you tooling to run the debugger, and web server can be launched from VS Code. You can execute BXS files or BX files that have a main method, and it supports syntax highlighting, language server integration as alpha. But again, a lot of the stuff works for Cold Fusion too. So it's really cool to be able to do the step debugger, like all those things that everyone has in other languages. We're actually using more and more inside of this, and Jacob Beers has been the one leading the way inside of Otis, working on this, and he's done a bunch of cool stuff. And so
Mm.
he's
I
done a
think tooling
presentation or two.
tooling is super important, right? Like, I mean, tooling helps Boxlang to be taken more seriously in other communities. And I think also like Adobe has recently updated their tooling. Their
Hmm.
CF Builder Visual Studio Code plugin got like a new version just recently, and they've done a lot of improvements on that as well. And I think it's good that people realize that because tooling is what gets you to developers and what helps us, you know, almost catch up, with modern technologies from like a tooling and convenience point of view.
Yeah, for sure. There's so much ease in your developer, like the DX developer experience makes a big difference. And
Yeah.
yeah, and there's a lot of things in here. And of course, I've got tons of ideas for things that could do better too, as far as like, hey, can I follow my Wirebox expansion, so my injection, so I can go find the file from there. Just, yeah, because there's a lot of things you can click through and follow through and, being able to look at the API documentation from your Swagger stuff
Mm.
directly in there and all sorts of cool stuff. And yeah, we're adding mappings and everything that are usually runtime mappings can be put in there so your mappings will expand and just a lot of cool stuff. But the debugger is really slick, and I know Jacob's done a few videos on that. There's some on CFcast, but there's also I believe some up on YouTube as part of the keynote and everything else too. So, and I think he's really released a new version any day now. So we're testing it right now before we release the new version. So by the time you go check this out, there might even be a new one there. So, um, but yeah, and again, it works with your Cold Fusion code too. So we're not just trying to say use boxlang. It's a big improvement on the CFML stuff as well. Okay, well, last but not least, we want to thank our Patreon supporters. So, again, thank you all the Patreon supporters we have. They're personally supporting our open source initiatives. And big thing is, I always like trying to sum it up, like basically our cloud infrastructure that the community relies on, ForgeBox package management with CommandBox. The cloud infrastructure is paid for by our Patreon supporters. That's a big part of that. And of course, I have our open source as well. So if you go to patreon.com/autosolutions, you can see some of the different plans. We have, silver and bronze packages. The cool thing is that if you have a bronze package, you get ForgeBox Pro account and a CFcast subscription as included as your Patreon subscription. So if you are a bronze package, you have access to all those 2024 ITB videos now, so you can go check those out. We also have profile badges on the community website for all Patreon supporters, as well as their own private forum access on that community website. And then we have a private channel on the Box Team Slack as well for our Patreons. And if you aren't in one of those channels, you don't have access to the forum, ping us and let us know so we can make sure we get you added to the list, because the Patreon list does fluctuate. So, yeah. So, good to see. And I see David Ballinger's in there saying, nice podcast today, guys. Great to see Kai on the show. So, I guess we'll have to have
Thank
you back.
David.
So, yeah, David's a,
we
a
should do
big
that
fan.
more often.
Yeah. Well, we've actually talked about trying to maybe bring some of the community members in periodically. It's just trying to get the green screen set up and the video and the time and everything can be kind of
Yeah,
fun
I haven't told you
sometimes.
that, but like the moment we went live, my Ubuntu system installed a kernel update, and for whatever reason, I have lost like two monitors, two of my three screens due to that. They are just black. They just turned black for whatever reason. And it was one of those kernel life patches that sometimes happen.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, okay, I think I learned a lesson from that. I should switch off life patch. That's not a good thing sometimes.
Hey, it didn't kill your feed or anything. You haven't gone blurry or
It
your
it
audio.
could it could well have though. I mean, that was just lucky that whatever that update did just killed two screens for now.
Yeah. The screen's always the first to go. But yeah. So actually, since you're here, I'm going to let you read our top Patreon list today. So these are some of our top Patreons. We can't list them all because we've got 60 now. But if you want to try and mispronounce all their names, we'll see how you do.
I'll see how I go. So we've got John Wilson, Synaptrix, Tomorrow's Guy, it's John Clark, Gary Knight, Giancarlo Gomez, David Bellinger, Dan Card, James Moberg, and Jeffrey McGee from Sunstar Media, Dean Maunder, Kevin Wright, Doug Kane, Nolan Erg, and Abdul Rahim. That was good, eh?
Yeah.
Ha.
Yep. I think you pronounce them pretty much the way I do, which is surprising. But good. But we do have the little phonetics sort of next to it from all those people that said you said my name wrong again. So we put them in our show notes, so hopefully we don't mess them up quite as much. But yep, you can get a list of all the up-to-date sponsors on the Order Solutions About Us sponsors page. But yeah, our next podcast will be New Year's Eve, so we're going to see if we can get maybe a couple more Orders people. Maybe we'll even get a community member or two, and we'll try and do a sort of a recap of 2024. And
You should do a predictions episode.
I was thinking, just as I was saying we're doing a recap, we should maybe do some predictions as well, because that might be kind of fun. Because yeah, some of those the other podcasts do that type of stuff, and even the radio show. So yeah, maybe we'll do that, and we'll have to see if people have some crazy predictions. So think about some predictions too. Maybe in the chat we can have some people put in their interesting predictions, and we'll keep track and see what happens in 2025.
Passkeys will die.
So passkeys take over the world. Yeah. But yeah, maybe we can make up some categories and try to put them in there, and then we can revisit the next year. Sounds like a good idea. So
Yep.
cool. Well, thanks very much, Kai. I appreciate having you on. It was a lot of fun.
You're welcome. That was good fun. Yep.
Yep, and everyone seemed to enjoy it. So I guess next week you're running the show, and I'll just take a vacation.
Yeah. Gavin is retiring for good. See ya.
Have a good one. Thanks, everybody.
Bye bye.
Show notes for this episode can be found at cfmlnews.modernizeordie.io, where you can also subscribe to your favorite podcast player like Spotify or iTunes. We also have the link to YouTube to find more videos just like this. The music used in this podcast is under a royalty-free license from Sound.com and Blue Tree Audio.